Okay. This is going to be part 5. Let's see how much we can get done. The Archducal couple returns. Several days had passed since I concluded my meeting with the Plantain Company and returned to the castle. Angelica was called outside Wilfred's room while he and I were taking our afternoon lessons, then promptly returned to say something to Riarda and Oswald. Lady Rosamine, Lord Wilfred. Ob Ehrenfest shall be returning quite soon, Riarda announced. Let's go and greet him. Despite having heard what she said aloud and clear, I simply continued reading and gave a half-hearted, okay. Father and Mother are back, Wilfred exclaimed excitedly as Riarda snatched the history book out of my hands with a fear-inducing smile. Studying can continue when we return. Come with us, milady. At Riarda's prompting, Wilfred and I made our way to the teleporter room. A knight standing guard opened the door to let us inside once we arrived. No sooner had we entered than the teleportation circle began to shine. That's perfect timing right there. The complex pattern of the magic circle appeared, and a second later, Sylvester, Florencia, and Cardstad were standing atop it. Wilfred immediately rushed over to welcome them back. We're home, Wilfred. Rosamine, did you keep working diligently? Florencia asked. Of course, Mother. We completed every mana replenishment, right, Rosamine? Right, Wilfred worked hard to get used to moving all that mana every day. I see. I'm very proud of you both. I couldn't ask for better children, Florencia said, stepping forward with a kind smile on her face. It seemed that they needed to leave the room quickly, since the scholars will soon be coming in behind them. I left Florencia with Wilfred, who had a bunch he wanted to tell her, and instead went over to Cardstad. He was rotating his arm in an attempt to stretch his shoulder. Welcome home, Father. His eyes widened in surprise for a moment. Dang my dang throat. Then crinkled in a soft smile as he looked down at me. It's good to see you as well, Rosamine. How have things been? Before I could even respond, Sylvester poked my cheek out of nowhere. He looked exhausted. His eyes were hollow, and his face had a ghastly pallor to it. Is something the matter, Sylvester? I asked with a tilt of my head. Oh my god, he wants you to call him Father too, I think. Why else would he do that? Or maybe he just wants to annoy you. Who knows? His expression went unchanged, and he continued poking my cheek with his dead fish-like eyes until I eventually figured out what he wanted. Oh! Pooey! This is all your fault, he said. He stopped poking my cheek at that point, but I still had no idea what was going on. What did he want from me? I looked up, blinking in bemusement, when he abruptly flicked my forehead with his pointer finger. Ow! We need to talk about the temple. Come to my office at 5th bell. Okay. I rubbed my stinging forehead as I said my goodbyes, and left with Wolverine to return to our lessons. We continued studying until 5th bell, which rang while I was partway through reading. You're going to see Father, Rosamine? I'll be drinking tea with Mother and our younger siblings, Wolfred replied, seeming overjoyed at finally getting to spend time with his parents again. He packed his things away almost immediately after the bell rang and dashed out the room to the main building. I had business with Sylvester, so I climbed into my panda bus and headed to his office. Almost everyone was used to seeing Leslie by now, so barely anyone gave me any shocked glances as he passed her by. Ob Ehrenfest, Lady Rosamine has arrived, announced a guard. Let her in. I entered the room to find attendants preparing tea and scholars sorting through paperwork they had brought back with them. Once I had taken the seat offered to me, Sylvester cleared the room of everyone except Cardstad, his guard knight. Wait elsewhere until I summon you all again. Only Cardstad is to stay, as you wish. The scholars stopped working at once, exiting alongside the attendants like a wave receding from the shore. What happened? Only once everyone had gone and their footsteps could no longer be heard did Sylvester let out a slow sigh. He dropped his majestic Archduke act almost immediately and plopped his head against the table. This is all your fault, Rosamine. What did I do? I understand this was a side that he only showed to his family, but I still wasn't really sure how to react. What had I done? What exactly was my fault? Maybe it's the fact that maybe the printing industry is getting out of control or something? I don't know. What exactly was my fault? I had no idea, and when I looked to Cardstad for help, he simply nodded in support of Sylvester. A lot happened, Cardstad said. Okay, Sylvester, what was it about the temple that you wished to discuss? He raised his head slightly, just enough to look at me without lifting it off the table, and glared at me resentfully with his dark green eyes. So you told my older sister about the death of my uncle, huh? Huh? Well, I mean, she was told that she was allowed to tell people who had asked for the former High Bishop that he was dead. By Ferdinand, no less. Was she not supposed to tell certain people? You all never told her this? I have no idea what you're talking about. You're really going to play dumb? Yeah, but I don't know. Sylvester narrowed his eyes further, as though my words had just confirmed something he had suspected. I decided to try to extrapolate what I could from his accusation. Well, I know that your uncle is the former High Bishop, but I don't know who your older sister is. I've only ever been told about her in passing, but she was married to Florencio's older brother, the Archduke of... I think it's maybe a different one. Frembeltig to the west, right? Is that who you're talking about? No, that's the younger of my older sister. I'm talking about my older sister, Sylvester replied, waving his hand. She was married off to Ehrenbach down south. Well, I certainly haven't heard of her. I don't even know your exact number of siblings. Yeah, how is she supposed to know who you were? She was supposed to not tell people about this stuff. I was so clearly disengaged with this whole discussion that Sylvester found it necessary to pull himself up and start rapping his fingers against the table in frustration. My sister said that the new High Bishop informed her. Surely you remember telling her about this last winter. The temple received many letters directed to the old High Bishop, and we replied to them all saying that he had passed on. Maybe one of them was from... Oh wait, did she send that magic letter? I wrote a reply after the dedication ritual, and it turned straight into a bird and flew away. It really took me by surprise, I said, recalling the magic letter from way back when. That's it, Sylvester declared, pointing a sharp finger my way. His face shone with excitement at us finally understanding one another. But it was short-lived. A few seconds later, he slumped his shoulders back down. Right. You don't know about my older sister. Well, my uncle loved to dote on her, and it turns out that they stayed in contact even after she got married. During the entire Archduke conference, she kept calling me cruel for not telling her about his death for almost a whole year. It seemed that Sylvester was so exhausted because his older sister had antagonized him about this during the entire conference, and then it hit me. Wait, is this perhaps the much older sister that everyone thought would be the previous Archduke's successor before you were born? She hated that you stole the position from her, and your father had her married to another duchy, since he predicted Ehrenfest would know no peace otherwise, right? Yeah, where did you learn all that? Well, I guess she wasn't Besenwa's secret lover after all. Okay, so it was his niece. Okay. It's a good thing that I didn't spread any rumors about that. The letters were just a niece complaining to her uncle, not long-distance lovers sending each other romantic messages. There were letters about it in a box that Besenwa's kept hidden. They must have been really close to keep in touch even after she moved to another duchy. My older sister takes after my mother in many ways, so she ended up my uncle's favorite. And it seemed that his sister had really given him hell for not disclosing Besenwa's death himself. Well, why didn't you tell her that? Hello, you could have sent your own message to her and let her know. Why didn't you? That's what's getting her mad, is because she didn't hear it from you. She had to hear it from somebody else. And it took a whole year, too. So, yeah, of course she's going to be peeved about it. Especially considering how close they possibly were. With her instead having to hear the news from the temple. Sylvester was the Archduke, so while he likely had his reasons for keeping silent given that crimes were involved, he still hadn't done what was expected of him. As far as I was concerned, he was hardly in a position to complain about her being bitter. Anyway, point being, she'll be coming at the end of summer to visit my uncle's grave. She also said that she wanted to meet and thank you for informing her about his death. Okay, it's nice that she did go through the effort to thank me like that. She must be a genuine, earnest woman. Maybe not. I don't know. You don't know what you're talking about, Sylvester replied, shaking his head. If she figures out that you're the reason my uncle got caught in the first place, you'll never hear the end of it. She'll antagonize you so relentlessly that her words will be like daggers piercing through your heart. I'm going to keep as quiet as I can about the details surrounding his death, or surrounding Besenwa's arrest, but my sister's own information network in Ehrenfest is still alive and well. All it'll take is one noble telling her the truth, and you'll be stuck suffering alongside with me. What? Just consider yourself lucky she can't stay here forever. My sister holds a mean grudge. Wrong her once, and she'll never let you forget it. It turned out that she wasn't a kind person at all. In fact, she was quite the opposite. Hateful, and apparently a pain to deal with. The blood drained from my face as I thought about having to put up with her, too, which made Sylvester give a nasty grin. Oh, you jerk! Misery loves company, and now I would need to endure the torment with him. Well, dude, it's your own fault. Why didn't you tell her from the start that Besenwa's had died? Yes, she would have been upset about it, obviously, but it would have been better for her to find out from the start and from her brother, not from some outside source. A year later. Ehrenbach, the duchy my sister was married off to, ranks higher than Ehrenfest, so ticking her off could cause diplomatic problems. Be careful not to make this an even bigger mess than it already is. Oh, what am I supposed to do? No, this has turned into such a big deal somehow. I slumped my shoulders in despair and stood up, assuming that this was the end of our conversation, but Sylvester gestured for me to sit back down. We're not done yet. I want to use this year's Starbound ceremony to bring Ferdinand back into noble society. What are your thoughts on this as the High Bishop? Excuse me. Well, I think it's a good idea if you want the temple to collapse overnight, I replied, honestly, causing Karstedt to burst out laughing. Sylvester, in contrast, cradled his head. That's not what I meant. You've been the High Bishop for a year now, so you know that the Central District has seen an increase in its harvest. Right now, the entire duchy lacks mana, which means both citizens and nobles alike want to see those with Archduke blood running through their veins working for the sake of the duchy. That sounded like nothing more than a conventional excuse to me, but I nodded in agreement anyway. Not to mention it's been a year since Mother was arrested. There's no longer anyone who would complain about Ferdinand coming back from the temple. I'm thinking about having him return to noble society, then formally assigning him to the position of High Priest, similar to what I did with you. Wasn't he already officially the High Priest? Okay, I'm confused now. It was a move with solid political justification, and I had no complaints so long as Ferdinand would be continuing his work as High Priest. But I glared at Sylvester anyway. You just want to do that so you can work Ferdinand to the bone in this castle as well, don't you? I would be quite unhappy with you stealing away his time right now. He hasn't finished raising his successors yet. Nobody had mentioned returning Ferdinand to noble society when Veronica was arrested, so it seemed to me that this was only coming up now because I had gotten him to focus on his work in the temple, rather than frequenting the castle to help there. Sylvester faltered at my distrustful accusation. It's certainly true that there aren't many members of the archducal family who can work in the castle right now, and his help would be much appreciated. Sylvester? But more importantly, I don't want to leave Ferdinand as he is now. Sylvester lowered his eyes. Do you know why Ferdinand is in the temple? He asked quietly. I've got an idea of why. From what I've heard and read, apparently Veronica was giving him such a freaking hard time with, like, death threats and stuff. Or attempts on his life, and that's why, he always checks for poison no matter what. And all that, and Sylvester had told him it was best for him to go to the temple and stay there because, you'll be safer there, essentially. That's what I think happened. I had heard scraps of information from Elvira, Karstedt, Besenwast, and Ferdinand himself, but nobody had given me the exact details. Based on what I've been told, I'd say that you sent him there to protect him from your antagonizing mother, but I don't know much more than that. Yeah, that is good. Yeah, that is it. Yeah. That's what I thought, too. That's good guesswork, Sylvester replied, nodding with a bitter frown. It was at this point that Karstedt filled me in a little more. Veronica was always harsh on Ferdinand, but toward the end of the former Archduke's lifespan, her malice for him became so great that it put his very life at risk. Yeah, considering he was probably primed to be probably the next Archduke had he not been antagonized by Veronica so much. He was probably the best of the best. He's a knight, he's a scholar, he's friggin' Archduke candidate. He's insane in every possible way. He would be a good Archduke, to be completely honest, if he had gone down that path. But obviously it did not happen. She was convinced that he wished for the Archduke's death and was aiming to secure the position for himself. Talk about being delusional. Why would Ferdinand ever want such a tedious job when he spent his entire life being told not only to live for the Archduke's sake, but that useless people had no reason to be alive? Especially when this mindset was so deeply ingrained into him that he refused to show any sign of weakness at all, forcing himself to drink potions just to keep going. Ferdinand is the son of a mistress, not a proper wife, and since Mother refused to adopt him, he legally couldn't become the Archduke. The position would only go to him if every other member of the Archducal family died. Mother knew that, but even so, she would antagonize him more with each passing day, becoming crueler and crueler before our eyes. This didn't change even after Father died and I became the Archduke. I took Ferdinand to flee to the temple just to get him away from her. It seemed there had been a period of unrest after Sylvester took the position, and he didn't want there to be any overt problems right away. His assumption had been that once he was settled in as the Archduke, his mother's persecution complex would calm down. But instead she began ferociously opposing any attempt to get Ferdinand back into the castle. I never intended for Ferdinand to stay in the temple as long as he has, Sylvester concluded. I understand where you're coming from, but right now Ferdinand is having the time of his life raising his successors, and he uses far fewer potions than he used to. His health is improving dramatically, and I don't believe changing his environment will be for the best right now, I replied. All my progress would be undone if Sylvester started working him to death in the castle again. Karstead chuckled to himself as I resisted giving up Ferdinand. When you put it like that, it's hard to tell which of you is the guardian here. Yeah, they're both guardians of each other. Yep, it almost sounds like she's his mother. Sylvester smirked before quickly hiding his mouth beneath his hand and glaring at me. Rosemine, even looking at this from the angle of Ferdinand being your guardian in the temple, it'd be better for him to return to noble society. Not to mention once he's assigned to the position of high priest as my brother, rather than as a blue priest, he'll be able to visit the temple with scholars and his guard knight retainers just like you. Won't that make his work there even easier? Among Ferdinand's retainers was Eckert and Justice, and I can remember Eckert bemoaning his inability to serve as his guard in the temple, given that Ferdinand had moved there of his own volition, rather than being assigned there like I had been. I'll discuss this with Ferdinand, but ultimately I think his opinion should take priority here, I said firmly. Right. With the conversation now actually over, I exited the room. The castle was brimming with life, full of scholars busily moving around due to the return of everyone the Archducal couple had brought with them to the Archduke Conference. And with them back, my job here was done. I could return to the temple without spending my days worrying about performing mana replenishment. The spring coming-of-age ceremony was fast approaching, and from there, summer baptisms would be right around the corner. The next day, I visited Ferdinand after returning to the temple. We naturally entered his hidden room to discuss this matter, so as to not send the other priests into a panic. I could tell that Ferdinand now had much more time on his hands, given that there were rows of vials containing strange liquids on his desk, and research papers spread out all over the place. It seemed that he was making good progress on researching magic tools, a subject of great interest to him. Yay, he's doing better! Thank God, Rosemine. That was a very smart suggestion on their part. After moving aside some documents, I sat on the same bench I always did. Ferdinand took out his chair and sat down as well, and once we made eye contact, he prompted me to begin. But what did you and Sylvester discuss? It seems he would like you to return to noble society, I began, going on to give him the gist of what Sylvester and I had spoken about. Ferdinand sighed. Is he still torn up over that? What a pain. I think he's right, though. There are a lot of advantages to doing this, and many detriments that I am sure he deemed it best not to mention, Ferdinand said with a bitter smile before furrowing his brow a little and tapping his temple. I can imagine that most people in the temple would be overjoyed at the opportunity to return to noble society, but Ferdinand seemed to find this more of an inconvenience than anything else. Sensing his unwillingness, I clenched my fist in determination. What do you want to do? If you would rather stay here, I'll tell Sylvester not to bother you. There is no need for that. You stand only to gain from this as long as I secure a promise that my position as High Priest will not change. And you should consider it wise not to protest the decision of an Archduke unless the situation truly demands it. Furthermore, as Sylvester said, I would be better served by having more men to aid me, and perhaps most importantly of all, Eckert and Justice are earning what is rather pointless ire for remaining by my side, and returning to noble society would well restore their honor. Oh, definitely. But yeah, it's not like he won't be the High Priest anymore. They did say that he would be the High Priest as Sylvester's brother, and not just a Blue Priest. I couldn't find it in myself to interrupt Ferdinand as he dryly listed off every benefit to his return. When he was done, I pursed my lips and glared at him. He was speaking entirely as though this didn't concern him. Who cares? Who cared how much it benefited Eckert, Justice, or me? This was his life we were talking about here. I'm not asking how your return will serve others. I'm asking what you want to do, Ferdinand. He widened his eyes as if stunned by my words, blinked a few times, and slowly shook his head. Regardless of whether or not I return to noble society, I will be called to the castle to help with paperwork. Thus, it is best for me to choose whichever option provides the most benefit to everyone else. I was asking to hear what he wanted to do, not what he thought the best course of action was. But it's hard to imagine Ferdinand budging here. If he was set on making the decision that brought the most overall advantages, then I would just have to respect that. It seems that Sylvester will announce your return to the nobles gathered for the Starbind ceremony. Your return to noble society, he be reassigned to the position of High Priest at his orders, and then formally become my guardian, I said. Ferdinand nodded along with my explanation, but when I mentioned him becoming my guardian, he raised an eyebrow and gave an amused smirk. Your guardian, Perhaps I spoke too soon. And what exactly do you mean by that? Is being my guardian such a huge detriment that it outweighs all those benefits you were talking about, I asked, shooting him a steely glare. Oh, here we go! Ferdinand scoffed, his golden eyes narrowing in amusement. That is exactly correct. You do nothing but introduce unpredictable problems after unpredictable problems. Serving at Ferdinand's side is already equally as difficult as being your guardian. Hey! That's rude! As much as it annoyed me, I really couldn't argue with that. Still, to think Ferdinand considers me as much of a troublemaker as Sylvester. This is the first time I'm hearing about this. I'm kind of offended that he thinks I'm on the same level as someone who pokes people's cheeks at random to make them say pooey. I have to agree. But yeah, this actually wouldn't change too much, because he would still be the high priest and still would be doing part of the work, but he would be in noble society again, and he wouldn't have to deal with Veronica either, so that's a big old plus in itself. To be honest with you. But then again, he probably would have to deal with the people in Veronica's faction still about and about, so yeah. That's a detriment in itself. But I wonder if I'm assuming he's already considered that. The dress debut and Ferdinand's return. Upon returning to the temple, I was faced with a barrage of extremely busy days. Oh, you should have mentioned to Ferdinand about the whole Sylvester's sister finding out about this whole thing and all the letters and stuff. Did you not do that? I needed to prepare printed goods for the next round of sales in the castle, arrange at the time and place for said sales, look over Bridget's completed outfit, and check up on Haas. As the Starlight ceremony approached, the temple internally prepared for the ceremony that would signal Ferdinand's return to the noble society, and word was spread so that he would properly return as the high priest once it was over. In the final few days leading up to the event, the doors to the high priest chambers were kept closed and entry was forbidden. Ferdinand no longer had a place in the temple now that he was being called back, so he was going to be staying in the nobles' quarter for the time being. Camphor, Freetic, I expect you to continue preparations for the Starbind ceremony as instructed, Ferdinand said. As you wish. Rosemont, perform the ceremonies as you have been, regardless of my absence. You need only to do the same as last year, so I cannot imagine there will be any problems. But do not get careless, understood? Only after listing off a long string of warnings that made his unease more than apparent did Ferdinand leave the temple for the nobles' quarter. I would have to perform this year's Starbind ceremony without him. Camphor and Freetic were entrusted with his duties while he was gone, and I could sense how anxious they were about it already. Don't worry, you two. All you need to do is read the story straight from the Bible. There's nothing to be anxious about, I said reassuringly. High Bishop, we are not worried about speaking of the gods during the ritual. We are worried that Brother Egmont and the other blue priests will not follow our instructions. Egmont and the former High Bishop's other lackeys were all up from high-status families, that is, families that were of a higher status than Camphors and Freetics. In this regard, it would be tough for the two of them to deal with non-compliance issues. Uh-oh. Yeah, you got a point on that! If anything of the sort happens, please inform me at once. I shall deal with them using my authority as High Bishop. It pains us to rely on someone as young as yourself, but your assistance will be much appreciated. They both agreed with gentle smiles. These guys are awesome! Where were they at during this whole time she was in the temple? Huh? Where were they at? If the blue priest wanted to use status as an excuse to slack off, then I simply had to crush that excuse with my own hammer of authority. And if that wasn't enough, a little actual crushing will no doubt silence any further opposition. Keeping them under control wouldn't be an issue at all. The Starbind ceremony is called the Star Festival in the Lower City, right? Hugo told me all about it, Nicholas said while dressing me in my ceremonial robes. I nodded. That's right. After the ceremony in the temple, everyone across the city throws cow fruit at one another. I imagine the children in the orphanage are going to be heading off very soon to pick up some for themselves. And I believe Gunter is going along with them. Letza said that he wouldn't be able to accompany the orphans today. The newly established Plantain Company really had to put in work during the Star Festival to get recognition in the area, so Benno had told him to mingle with the Lehandras and the stores they came from. The life of a merchant was not an easy one, no dip. Hugo won't get to participate in the Star Festival's main event this year, either, given that his partner broke up with him. Ella told me all about it, but since he's so busy preparing to move to the nobles' quarter and work as a helper in the castle's kitchen, he isn't upset about it at all. Well, that's what he would say, at least. He had a really frustrated look on his face when he told me, Nicholas said with a laugh. Both of my personal chefs were busy today since they will be heading to the nobles' quarter right after lunch. I'm relying on you to make dinner, Nicola. You can count on me. I'm growing a lot, too. There would be one ceremony in the temple this morning, then another in the castle during the afternoon. This year was exceptionally busy because this second ceremony was where we will be debuting Bridget's dress. Bridget must be extremely busy right now, Daniel mused aloud as he rode to the castle and Leslie with my other personnel. He was sitting in the passenger seat since Bridget wasn't here. She had today off and had spent the entire morning preparing for the debut. She would normally get changed in the night storm, but as she was going to be wearing a dress I had designed myself, she was being dressed in the castle instead. I'm sure she's really anxious too, especially since she has Lady Elvira accompanying her while you were busy at the temple. That'd be like one spending all morning with the Knight Commander, Daniel continued, placing an uneasy hand on his stomach as though he was feeling Bridget's pain firsthand. Since Daniel had to participate in the Starbind ceremony as well, he headed straight to the night storm once we arrived at the castle. During my time here, my guard knights would be 2 minors, Cornelius and Angelica. Time to get you ready, milady, Riarda said. Rosina advised Monica and Nicola as to what hairstyles are popular in the castle, so unlike last year, I don't believe much additional preparation will be needed. What do you think, Riarda? She looked me over from head to toe with narrowed eyes, examining me from every angle. Then, after adjusting my robes at the hip ever so slightly, she gave a nod. That should just about do it. Now let's get you to the room where Bridget's waiting. I believe she's almost ready. Wait, we already skipped the Starbind ceremony for the commoners? Wow. Okay. By the time we arrived, Bridget was already surrounded by Karina and several seamstresses, all of whom were busily moving about beneath Elvira's watchful eye. Mother, I thank you ever so much for agreeing to my request. I appreciate looking over Bridget today. Of course, Rosemine, you may entrust the dress's debut to me and focus on your duties as High Bishop. I was attending the Starbind ceremony solely to perform my duties as High Bishop since I was a minor. I had to leave once they were over. To that end, Elvira would also be accompanying Bridget to ensure the debut went smoothly, a job she had accepted with glee due to the high praise the dress received during its initial unveiling. The reality was that Elvira had been unhappy about having nothing to do, since neither Eckert nor Lampert were looking for partners this year. They had both ended up personally thanking me for drawing her attention away from them. It looks wonderful on you, Bridget. Thank you, Lady Rosemine. The halter dress hugged her upper body, making her chest down to her waist look as beautiful as can be, and its light emerald green fabric did an excellent job emphasizing both her dark red hair and the similarly colored flower decorations adorning her skirt, while the hair ornament she wore sported pure white flowers and bouncing leaves that matched her dress. The ornament used a long hair stick similar to the one I wore so that anyone could immediately identify that she had my personal support. The beauty of the dress alone would be enough to garner attention, but it was none other than Rosemine herself who designed it. I imagine that many ambitious men with a lust for power will approach you for political means, Bridget, so please take care, Elvira warned, but Bridget shook her head with a defeated smile. I am a woman who cancelled an engagement prior to this. I had given up all hope of ever finding another partner. Should Lady Rosemine's dress attract a man who will bring good fortune to Ilgnir, there is nothing more I could ask for. I mean, I'm more concerned about them looking good for you than for Ilgnir, I thought, but since I didn't understand the exact impact of cancelling an engagement in noble society, there wasn't much I could say. A man who's good for Ilgnir, Elvira wondered aloud. That may still prove rather difficult. Your connection to Rosemine is clear to all, and if your province does not appeal to others, it seemed to me that starting a new paper-making business in Ilgnir would make it easier for Bridget to find a good marriage partner. I'll do my best with the negotiations for both her sake and mine. Now then, we must depart for the Grand Hall. Rosemine, please return to your room for now, Elvira said before leaving with the fully prepared Bridget. I'll be watching from the stage, I called out, causing Bridget to return a small, embarrassed smile. Once the door was closed, I turned to Karina, who was busy cleaning up. Thank you for all your work here, Karina. The efforts of both you and your seamstresses have helped Bridget to blossom into the beautiful woman she deserves to be. I am certain that her new dress will draw the attention of all those present tonight, and the Gilberto Company's name will surely spread like wildfire. We are grateful beyond words for your patronage, Karina said as she knelt down. The other seamstresses followed suit as well. Now, if you will excuse me, I must attend to other matters. Audley, I trust you to handle the rest. As you wish, Lady Rosemine, but now that I could use my high beast inside the castle, I arrived at the Grand Hall right on time without having to be rushed along by Riarda like last year. I speedily put away my pandabus, and after having Riarda check my clothes for wrinkles, stepped into the hall. The High Bishop has arrived, intoned the speaker. The ceiling of the Grand Hall reached as high as that of a gymnasium, and stretching down from the center of the room from the entrance of the stage was a black, gold-hemmed carpet. I started to walk along it with everyone's eyes watching me just as they had the year before. Had I gotten any faster? No. This way, Rosemine. On stage was Sylvester, Florencia, and Karstead with several other guard knights standing behind the archducal couple. I took a seat beside Sylvester just as I had done last year, prompting Cornelius and Angelica to stand behind me. You sure made one heck of a dress, huh? That knight hardly ever even looks like the same woman as last year, Sylvester said in an impressed tone. while looking down at Bridget. She was currently in one corner of the hall, surrounded not only by men, but also women interested in her new outfit. My guard knight sure is a beauty, isn't she? Yep, she'll receive more marriage proposals than she'll know what to do with, Sylvester responded with a nod. He had been fairly harsh on Bridget last year, but now he was giving her full marks. It seemed to me that he was exclusively staring. No, Sylvester! Hey! Eyes up front. Focus on what you gotta do. Now, I know that, obviously, archnobles and everything can take more than one wife, but I don't think he should be. I don't think he's been interested in finding another wife. He's only got Florencia. So, I don't know. He was exclusively staring at her pronounced bust, but I was kind enough not to point that out. I didn't want to say anything that might harm his reputation in Florencia's eyes. That said, she's basically advertising that she has your full support here. She's going to be hounded by ambitious men who lust for power. You better warn her to be careful. My mother already did, but Bridget simply responded that she didn't mind as long as she could secure a good partner to help Ilgnir. She had given up on marrying anyone of worth due to having canceled her previous engagement. I do hope she can find a good husband, but... I trailed off, pursing my lips unhappily. Sylvester raised an eyebrow. Hard to say what kind of marriage this world has in store for her, but whether it's good or not will depend on Gabe Ilgnir. Hopefully they don't draw another dud. Well, I won't consider myself responsible if they do. I trust Bridget and Gabe Ilgnir to make the right decision here, I replied. I didn't know what kind of person would be good for Ilgnir, not what Bridget wanted in a marriage. I didn't know what Bridget wanted in a marriage. I'm just pleased that everyone now understands Bridget is a beautiful and charming woman. I also hope that it becomes fashionable for women to wear clothes that suit them, rather than them being restricted to whatever's trendy. So you were thinking about more than just starting a new trend here, huh? Sylvester said, his eyes widening a little in surprise. My ambitions here weren't that lofty. I just wanted people to be free to wear clothes that look good on them. All of a sudden I heard the high-pitched squeals of many fine noble women rise above the chatter. Uh-oh. I looked over to see what all the fuss was about and realized that Ferdinand had entered the hall. Women thronged the door to catch even a passing glimpse, though they didn't dream of standing in his way. Everyone kept clear of the gold-hemmed cape as though they had agreed to do so ahead of time. There you are, Ferdinand, Sylvester called out. Ferdinand reached the stage with no obstructions, climbed up on the steps, and sat next to me on the opposite side from Sylvester. Behind him stood Eckert, who was unable to hide the smile on his face. Being able to serve as Ferdinand's guard knight apparently brought him more joy than searching for a new wife. Oh, poor guy. He really loves working for Ferdinand. He is very, very devoted to I guess whoever has his attention, he's very devoted to them. No wonder he hasn't looked for a new wife yet. He was probably devoted to her. I imagine, anyway. I could be wrong, let me know. Dang it, I hate that feeling. You seem happy about this, Eckert. Indeed, I had thought the day where I could once again serve Lord Ferdinand might never come, just as glad as I am. Quite, he even said that he would now like to visit the temple as much as possible, though it seemed to me that his eyes fell on someone other than myself, Ferdinand added, shooting me a weighty glance. Are you inferring that Justice wants to visit the temple to see me? An outright answer may lead to unwelcome rumors about his romantic proclivities, but considering his obsession with collecting information, there is no mistaking that you are a source of great interest to him, Ferdinand replied. Oh, yeah, especially considering her otherworldly experiences from Japan. Oh, heck yeah, definitely. He would definitely want to probe her brain. Confirming my suspicion, despite having in the same sentence expressed his desire not to. It turned out that Justice found me and my antics to be both surprising and intriguing to no end. Take care not to mention this carelessly, Ferdinand repeated, making sure I understood. Right. By the way, your return to noble society means you can get married again, right? Shouldn't you be down there looking for someone, I asked? It seemed to me that rather than sitting up on the stage, he should be with the other available men, calling out to a fine noblewoman or two. I don't think he's interested right now. And the fact that I think he already has a fiancé, so yeah. But Ferdinand glanced down at the hall dismissively. There would be no point. Not a single woman there has enough mana to match my own. His flat response took me by surprise. Well, yeah, especially considering normally, if I remember correctly, if you have more mana than someone, then you can't sense their mana. Because Daniel was able to sense the guy in the forest, but the others could not. So I guess he can tell that there's no one there. He can't sense anybody else's mana, so that's what he means. His flat response took me by surprise. I was already aware from the situation between Bridget and Daniel that a considerable difference in mana capacity was enough to kill any chance of a relationship. But was he really saying that every single woman of marriageable age in the hall didn't have enough mana for him? Not a single one? Not among the unmarried women of Ehrenfest, no. Wait, really? But haven't you courted a girl before? Mother mentioned that it didn't last long, but... It was hard to imagine there being any mistakes in the deep Ferdinand lore that I'd heard from Elvira, especially considering that it largely originated from Eckert, who had witnessed it all happen beforehand. I shot him a quick glance, which was enough for Ferdinand to deduce the true source of my information. What in the world have you all been wasting your time talking about? He asked with a grimace. Good grief. Either way, that happened when I was attending the Royal Academy. There were girls taking the Archduke candidate course alongside me whose mana capacity was large enough to match my own. And to be clear, if we included married women in Ehrenfest, then there would be one who was compatible. I was relieved to know that the number of women weren't literally zero, but I also couldn't help but wonder, considering this is purely about mana, would that married woman he's referring to be Florencia? I guess not even Ehrenfest archnobles have a large enough capacity for Ferdinand. Wow, that's a lot. That's saying something. It must be rough only being compatible with members of the archducal family, I said. Upon hearing me speak about the matter as though it didn't concern me whatsoever, Karstedt gave a bemused frown. In that case, Ferdinand, perhaps you should... Here we go! Someone mentioned it! No, actually, no, he mentioned it already once. He already mentioned it once, when Ferdinand was trying to give her that medical, examination where, you know, he figured out that she had already died in the past. He had actually mentioned that he was going to actually see about getting those two married. Perhaps you should marry Rosemine. Her mana capacity will equal yours once she's grown up, correct? Really? It's not already there? Okay. His abrupt suggestion caused both Ferdinand and me to grimace with wide-eyed horror. You would have me look after this problem child for my entire life. Just how much do you wish for me to suffer, Karstedt? Ferdinand is exactly right. Being stuck with a perpetually unhappy lecture factory like him would be nothing but torment for me. Would you ever want me to want to marry him, Father? Even knowing how talented he is, I don't think so. You two are sure are two peas in a pod, huh? Sylvester chimed in, his lips curling into an especially smug smirk. My cheeks started to twitch with frustration. He always made that face when he was causing problems for other people. But I mean, to be completely honest, if we're talking about mana capacity here purely by itself, there aren't many people that Rosemine could probably marry once she gets old enough. Because it did say that mana capacity grows as you get older, before, like until, I think, you reach coming of age, I think? I'm assuming, is that when it stops growing? Because by then, hers probably would match Ferdinand's, which means that there would not be hardly anybody she can marry if the same is for the guys as for the girls. For, you know, mana capacity, like he said, there wasn't anybody there who he could pick from mana capacity-wise. So yeah, that would be, you'd be hard-pressed to do that. Unless, yeah, but like I said, Wilfried would probably be the only one besides maybe Ferdinand that she could realistically be with, like, mana capacity-wise, because we don't even know Wilfried's capacity once he gets old enough. I mean, we don't know until we get to that point. We're both glaring at him. I don't blame him, though. But I mean, to be completely honest, I think that they probably would loosen up around each other more if they were to get married, because they are a married couple. It would be a married couple after all. I don't know anymore, to be honest, guys. What do you guys think? Would they be happy together, or do you think that they would be unhappy together? I don't know. Yeah, these two would be okay with the idea. Sylvester, I began, planning to say that he should drop the idea before I dropped him. But Ferdinand stopped me before I could. All that we'll achieve is amusing him further, he said. It made perfect sense. We couldn't let ourselves react the way Sylvester wanted us to. I nodded in agreement, at which point Ferdinand placed a hand on my shoulder and gave me a serious look. Rosemine, you will find more nobles with a mana capacity equivalent to yours in the Royal Academy than anywhere else. Use that time to find the best partner you can. I do not mind if doing so requires you to leave Ehrenfest. You have my express permission. Hide your true self and do everything in your power to find a partner. Understand? I will put in the effort to find someone with a large book collection than anyone in Erebus. Really, dude? That's what you're concerned about right now? Oh my god. Benna was right. Oh my god. He was right. I know that he knows her very well, but Jesus Christ, dude. Would you really go with someone who has a gigantic book collection but is a complete asshole? Would you do that? I would hope not. I would hope she would go for someone that she actually shares a connection with. But who knows? To find someone with a larger book collection than anyone in Erebus, but really, you're the one who should be putting in the work here, Ferdinand. You're approaching a more dire age for this thing than I am. As we advance the conversation along on our own, Sylvester hurriedly leaned forward to stop us. Hold it, you two. These are some serious political decisions you're trying to make. Ferdinand, you don't have the authority to give her permission for that. Think again, Sylvester. Have you forgotten that I am soon to be her guardian? My, Sylvester, and a guardian is much like a parent, are they not? I asked, both Ferdinand and I sharing the same subtle, victorious smile. These two are alike in more ways than one. And yet they don't even realize it. Rosemine doesn't even realize this. Sylvester fell silent, completely aghast. That would probably be enough to stop him from butting in again. Satisfied with the counterattack we had landed, I began scanning the hall for Daniel just as I had done last year. But once again, I couldn't find him. Perhaps he had finally found a cute girlfriend, or maybe he was too love-struck with Bridget to even search for one. I'd say the latter. I'm hoping he's still doing the mana compressing like she showed him, because maybe that would help. As 7th bell, Sylvester smoothly stood up from his chair and took a step forward, his cape rippling behind him. Now begins the starbind ceremony. Newlyweds come forth. Once the newlyweds in the hall were lined up, Sylvester gave a speech. The couples then signed their marriage contracts one pair at a time, and when those were all done, I gave them a blessing. O mighty King and Queen of the endless skies, O God of darkness and Goddess of light, hear my prayers. May you grant your blessings to the birth of new unions. May they who offer their prayers in gratitude to thee be blessed with thy divine protection. I prayed to the King and Queen gods while pouring my mana into my ring, causing black and golden lights to swirl around before shooting up to the ceiling. The lights merged together, overlapped, and then exploded. Tiny specks of glistening dust scattered throughout the room, raining down on the newlyweds to the cheers of the audience. Whew! My work here is done. The announcement of Ferdinand's return to the Noble Society was apparently happening next, but I had to leave as soon as my blessing was given. I would have to wait and hear the details from Elvira during our tea party planned for tomorrow afternoon. Mother, how was the reception for Bridget's dress? I asked. I made sure to take the first sip of tea and try one of the pre-prepared sweets before gesturing for her to do the same. Elvira gently raised her own teacup to her lips, letting out a wistful sigh with a blissful look on her face. Last night she was simply wonderful, and she began, her eyes sparkling like those of a young girl with radiant dreams. What followed wasn't a discussion on how the dress was received, however, but a love story starring Bridget. She had spent the previous year's ceremony clad in clothes that didn't suit her, but this year she wore a new outfit so stunning that she attracted the attention of all those present. The dress had, of course, been designed by the Archduke's adopted daughter, and as men found themselves drawn to both Bridget's beauty and her powerful political sponsor, one man stepped forward from the crowd with a smile, the very same man she had previously ended her engagement with. Oh, no! If I remember what Bridget said correctly, she ended the engagement because his family tried to take over Ilgnir. Correct? I am willing to offer you another chance. Getting engaged to me again will repair your reputation more than any other marriage could, he said brazenly, extending a hand for her to take. Nope. Wait, where did Daniel come from? I thought she didn't see him in the crowd. Where did he come from? But then Daniel stepped forward with the several fellow knights, going between Bridget and her former fiancé in an attempt to protect her honor. Daniel knelt before Bridget and declared, "Wait 1 year for me, and I shall have developed enough mana to earn your hand in marriage." It was like watching a ninth story develop before our very eyes, and even observing from the sidelines was enough to make my heart pound with emotion. If only a man would pine for my love with such fervor, Elvira concluded with a heavy, breathless sigh. What the heck? I can't believe I missed that! I know! I would have loved to see, I can't wait to see, I want to see that in the anime. Come on, guys, hurry up and get Season 4 out. Actually, what am I saying? Season 4 probably wouldn't even cover to this point. Which sucks. Oh, I want to continue. How far have I gotten? 44 minutes. I want to continue making an hour. Okay, guys, you guys are getting more. Lunch meeting and business day. It was 2 days after the Starbind ceremony, and the book sale was being held this afternoon. Word had spread during the ceremony, resulting in more nobles staying behind in the nobles' quarter than last year. But this also meant there was plenty of time for rumors surrounding Daniel's proposal to circulate through the castle. Now, all sorts of people were teasing him. Oh, I can't blame them, though. It's so cute. But yeah, Bridget, wait 1 year for him. Please. Women were fairly fond of the event since it had been like watching a storybook romance unfold before their very eyes. But men thought it impossible for a lay noble like Daniel to get enough mana to match a man noble like Bridget. They were mocking him for clinging so hard to doomed love. But even then, they did praise him for defending her honor from her ex-fiancé. On occasion, I even saw someone slap him on the back and say, "Can't wait to see what happens next year," with broad grins on their faces. I can't believe it. I can't wait too. Bridget herself was saying that regardless of whether or not Daniel managed to build up enough mana over the next year, she was grateful for him protecting her honor. The look on her face made it clear that she thought he would never actually achieve his impromptu promise, and that had been made only to protect her in the moment. "Just 1 year, Daniel. Do you believe you will make it?" I asked. Everyone's mana capacity increased at a different rate, and while I had taught him my compression method, I wasn't sure how helpful it would ultimately be. In fact, I didn't even know how big the difference was between him and Bridget. Yeah, it is the difference. "I don't know, but I'm just glad to have some more time," Daniel replied. His resolve steeled now that he had given himself a deadline. His firm expression was pretty cool compared to his usual, let's face it, lame demeanor. On this busy sales day, I was also having a lunchtime meeting with Geeb Ilgnir. He had asked for some of my time to thank me for the dress I made Bridget, which was perfect timing for me. I already wanted to discuss my trip to Ilgnir and introduce him to the planting company, so scheduling on the same day as the book sale was more than convenient. "Ferdinand, Geeb Ilgnir, it is a pleasure to see you both today," I said as I entered the dining room. Now that Ferdinand was officially my guardian, he was participating in meetings related to the printing industry to ensure I didn't cause any bizarre problems or get dominated in conversations by other nobles. As my adopted father, Sylvester was my primary guardian, but the Archduke obviously didn't have the time to attend every meeting I was involved in. My secondary guardian was Karlstedt, my actual father, as it were, but since he was the Archduke's guard knight, he couldn't attend every meeting either. That left Ferdinand as the only man for the job, and you'd better believe he was already grumbling about how he never should have rejoined noble society in the first place. "Oh, you have my sympathy, Ferdinand. You did it to yourself, dude. You didn't have to." After exchanging our long noble greetings, lunch was served. I naturally took the first bite, allowing Ferdinand and Geeb Ilgnir to pick up their cutlery as well. No sooner had Geeb Ilgnir taken a bite himself than a heartfelt smile spread across his face. "I was shocked by the delicious flavors of your recipes when I first enjoyed them last winter, Lady Rosemine. Bridget often brags about getting to eat your food, so I've been eagerly awaiting this lunch meeting." Bridget shot him a stern glare, her cheeks tinged red in embarrassment at her secrets being revealed. Geeb Ilgnir smiled back at her before getting straight to the point. "Lady Rosemine, I am grateful beyond words for you gifting my little sister a new-fashioned dress for the Starbind ceremony. Your kindness has restored her honor and given her new hope for marriage," he continued, glancing over at Daniel. From the noble, subtle mirth in his grin, I could guess that he had witnessed the famed proposal firsthand. Lucky! "Rosemine didn't get to witness it. She would have loved it. She would have been gleeful about it." With that, I also glanced toward Daniel, who was standing behind me as my guard knight. I exited as soon as I completed my blessing, and was thus regrettably unable to see the proposal. "What happened exactly?" I asked, prompting Geeb Ilgnir to elaborate. He went on to tell me what happened from his perspective as Bridget's brother, making it sound a lot more like a hero striking down a villain than a love story. It was pretty entertaining to hear how much his narrative differed from Elvira's interpretation of events. Once he had finished, lunch came to an end. "I know not whether this is enough to repay you, Lady Rosemine, but Ilgnir is ready for your visit at any time. We would like to prepare as much wood from as many trees as possible for your sake," Geeb Ilgnir said as we sipped our post-meal tea. I was going to pounce on the opportunity, but Ferdinand raised a hand to stop me. "Rosemine, be aware that Geeb Ilgnir intends to use your visit to show Bridget's former fiancé that they have your full support, thereby discouraging him from causing any further problems. Please keep this in mind as you respond. There is a considerable chance of you becoming embroiled in their conflict," Ferdinand explained, quietly eyeing him, but I had been fully prepared to back up Bridget from the moment I designed the dress. I didn't have any problem with Geeb Ilgnir exploiting my interest to benefit his province. As I, too, do not wish for Bridget to marry someone who would cause her harm, I have no qualms of my influence being used to intimidate her former fiancé. Being able to research plant paper at Ilgnir is of great use to me, and I do not mind assisting Ilgnir in turn. Gib Ilgnir wanted my political support, and I wanted Ilgnir's wood and hospitality for research purposes. We both served to benefit from this operation, which meant I could send the planting company there without any worries. Research plant paper, you say? Gib Ilgnir asked. Indeed, paper is an essential component in printing. I must establish plant paper workshops before I can spread the printing industry throughout Ehrenfest. And you will be entrusting that to Ilgnir, he asked, blinking in disbelief. I was offering him an opportunity to join the duchy's new business from the very start. There would be no better way to show other nobles that he had my support, and meanwhile I would be able to research plant paper to my heart's content. I shall of course share with you how to create plant paper as research on new varieties progresses within Ilgnir. You will be able to invest in the printing industry before any other provinces with forestry. I thank you, Gib Ilgnir said, his expression softening as he realized my support here was genuine. I smiled back at him, but capitalizing on this opportunity wouldn't be trivial. Papermaking took work. Gib Ilgnir, I will have you support merchants of the planting company as they establish workshops and conduct research on your province. You have buildings for housing priests during spring prayer and the harvest festival, correct? Assuming those are ready and supplied, we can begin at once. At once, you say? Gib Ilgnir repeated, surprised. I nodded with a broad smile. I have been studying geography as of late, and if my memory serves me correctly, I believe Ilgnir is one of Ehrenfest's most southern provinces. Its climate is such that its rivers do not freeze even in winter. Ooh, that's good! And if this is true, you may be able to turn papermaking into winter handiwork. That would be a very appealing prospect. The planting company will provide more information on how the paper profits are to be distributed. Since shipping costs will presumably be involved, I imagine your workshops will not make exactly the same amount as mine. Oddly, I believe the planting company should have already arrived at the sales room. Please summon Benno for me. The planting company was in another room preparing for the upcoming business discussion, and after a brief wait, Benno arrived alongside a young man whom I didn't quite recognize. Blessed be the vibrant summer rays of Leidenschaft, the god of fire, who guided us toward the serendipitous meeting. I am Benno of the planting company. It is an honor to meet you. May the planting company be blessed by Leidenschaft, the god of fire, Gib Ilgnir responded, spawning the lights of a blessing which floated to both Benno and his companion. With the greetings done, I explained to Benno why I had summoned him. There wasn't a trace of panic in his expression, since I had told him ahead of time that he was very likely going to be called in during my meeting with Gib Ilgnir. Even I've grown a little by now. Benno, I was discussing the paper research with Gib Ilgnir. When will the planting company be ready to depart? As soon as you wish, Lady Rosamine. We have prepared both the tools and the men we need, Benno replied. I appraised the speed and quality of their work before looking over at Gib Ilgnir. Lady Rosamine, if we need only open the doors of our buildings for them, then we are ready for you at any time. But may I ask how long they expect to visit? The priests will need the buildings when they arrive for the harvest festival, and there is as much more we will need to repair if your merchants intend to stay over the winter. They are due to stay until Ilgnir's harvest festival. I shall visit and perform the ceremony myself, using the opportunity to hear the results of their research and bring the planting company back along with the workshop workers. This approach would preclude any significant problems, and by breaking my pattern of merely performing ceremonies in the central district, I can make my alliance with Ilgnir even clearer. Ferdinand, please take care to schedule me for Ilgnir during the harvest festival. I shall make it so, Ferdinand said with a nod, voicing no objections. Good. Thank you, Ferdinand. You're awesome. We will depart as soon as my workshop is prepared. Bridget can inform you of the precise dates by ordinance when the time comes. Understood. I will await your arrival, Gib Ilgnir replied, and with that, Benno asked for permission to speak. Lord Ferdinand, Lady Rosamine, Gib Ilgnir, may I introduce a planting company merchant who will be heading to Ilgnir? You may. His name is Damien. He is the grandson of Gustav, guildmaster of the Ehrenfest Merchants Guild. It is my understanding that he met Lady Rosamine once several years ago, he announced. Damien, who was standing behind him, smoothly crossed his arms and knelt. He had light chestnut-colored hair and amber eyes and was about as tall as Benno. The fact that he was remaining calm in this presence of so many nobles, despite looking as though he had only just come of age a few years ago, showed that he was from a rich and powerful family. His introductions erased all possible doubt that he was Frida's older brother, but I couldn't unsee him as a roughly 10-year-old kid. He hadn't been this tall back then, nor was he an adult. I did meet him once while in the care of Gustav and Frida, but he looks quite different from what I remember. Yes, he went through a growth spurt that changed his appearance entirely in the span of a single year, Benno explained. With the introduction finished, I took out my diptych to read out the important details for our stay. In return for instructions on how to make plant paper, we entrust the preparations of meals to Ilgnir. We shall instruct one grey priest to help with the cooking each day. Would you care to discuss with Benno the specifics of the plant paper sales and distribution of profit once work in Ilgnir has begun? From there, the conversation proceeded mainly between Ilgnir and the planting company. I mediated and occasionally proposed amendments to ensure that each side received a fair amount, and Benno's merchant perspective was understood in full. Rosamund, it is almost 5th bell. You must depart for the sales room, Ferdinand warned, having probably looked at something to determine the time. Benno and Damien promptly exited the room, after which I said my farewells to Gabe Ilgnir. His verbose statements could be summarized as, "Do take care of my little sister now that she's the center of attention." When I headed to the sales room, I found that many merchants were there already. I didn't recognize any of them except Benno and Mark, who were walking around and giving instructions. The others were probably the Lehandras sent from other stores. They all moved and spoke with well-trained grace. I think Lutz might need a little more training in places like this to reach their level. Preparation for business had mostly been completed and products were lined up on each table. There were the books on the 7 primary gods, the ones and their subordinates representing the 4 seasons, the different seasons, a selection of the night stories, short stories not yet bound in a single collection, and the sheet music for 6 unique songs, all thanks to the hard work of those at the orphanage and Haas's workshop. We are also selling cards, playing cards, and reverse sets that have been made as winter handiwork. Lady Rosamund, Benno said upon seeing me. He knelt and the other merchants quickly followed suit. No need for any greetings given that we just saw one another. How are the preparations going? The customers will be arriving soon? We are almost ready. Do you observe anything that is lacking? He asked. Meanwhile, the merchants swiftly stood up to finish the last of their work. They moved smoothly, and the final touches were steadily completed before my eyes. Benno, have you prepared what we discussed earlier? I asked, shooting a meaningful glance his way. He grinned and nodded. Of course. Oh, well, now I'm curious. Benno, business would begin at 5th bell, but nobles began arriving a little earlier than that to get greetings out of the way. I was, of course, forced to oblige. Lady Rosamund, thank you ever so much for granting my request. I have yearned for books of each season for so long now, one noble child said. I had announced this book sale ahead of time in the winter playroom, so students and their parents were rushing to buy picture books on the subordinate gods of each season. In any case, their greeting washed over me, and I instead used this opportunity to recommend my products. According to my guard knight, reading these picture books will make third-year courses significantly easier. I wish you luck in your studies. The girl, hugging the picture books on the subordinate gods to her chest, pointed at another product with the silhouette of a man playing the harpspiel on the cover. What is this, might I ask? That is harpspiel sheet music, I replied. Those with a woman on the cover are practice songs for children, arranged by my personal musician, while those showing a man are songs debuted by Ferdinand during his concert. I believe those who attended will find these songs in particular quite nostalgic. The songs written by Rosina were arrangements of school anthems I had sung and played for her. Printing for them was already complete by the time I returned to the temple following the Archduke conference. Oh my, you wrote the songs yourself, Lady Rosamund? I would not go that far. No, I simply hummed songs for Ferdinand and my musician to arrange. That is still quite impressive, the girl replied, selecting a fairly difficult piece from the selection of children's practice songs to buy. A man noble, or perhaps a lay noble woman, soon came over, her young son eagerly pulling her hand. He just wants playing cards ever so much. I have heard great things about them during tea parties, so I believe I shall be buying a set now. She had apparently brought some cards last winter to help her son learn to read, and now he was dying to have a set of playing cards too. They help one learn math, and also, since victory is rewarded with sweets, everyone is desperate to improve. Perhaps with these you will win next winter, I said to the boy. I'll study as hard as I can and get the sweets for sure, he replied with a happy smile, victoriously holding up the playing cards. Next came a noble on the fairly older side. Oh ho, so these are all printed, he asked while peering down at the cover art of each book with great interest. Indeed, these are printed goods, the products of an industry that is soon to become a central pillar of Ehrenfest. You may pick them up and look inside if you would like. Unlike during our sale at the winter playroom, we weren't prioritizing children this time, so both nobles interested in printing and those attempting to form connections with me were in attendance. The older nobleman flipped through the pages of one book, curious about what printing was, and ultimately brought the text-heavy night stories. Oh my, this is the sheet music for the songs Lord Ferdinand played at his concert? Consider them sold. And you wouldn't happen to have any more illustrations like these you sold back then, would you? Another young lady asked in a hushed whisper. Unfortunately, I do not, I responded clearly before gesturing with a smile for Benno to bring me away. Yeah, oh, here we go! Here we go! This night story is a work of fiction. Any similarity to actual persons living or dead or actual events is purely coincidental. While these may look familiar, I can assure you they are not who you think they are. Mark handed me a file made from thin wood boards, which I opened in front of the young woman. Inside were the illustrations for the night stories. Since you could only see the covers when browsing the lined-up books, I had made this collection of selected art. It very helpfully allowed customers to pick which stories to buy based on the illustrations they liked the most, since beneath each one was the title of whatever tale it was based on. I considered putting them up on the wall like posters or making stands to hold up the illustrations behind the books, but I was afraid that Ferdinand would notice and forbid their sale entirely, so I was keeping it somewhat secretive for now. Smart idea. Lady Rosemine, might I purchase this collection of illustrations? It is unfortunately not for sale, but the stories certainly are. After staring at the illustrations to her heart's content, her eyes positively sparkling as she examined the pictures, the young woman bought one of the night stories. Once the transaction was complete, I handed the file straight back to Mark. The young woman must have immediately gone off and told all her friends about it, as we were soon struck by a wave of young women clamoring to buy copies themselves. They all wanted to see the file, too. Good. This is what I like to see. Oh, Ferdinand, you silly man. I know you don't like it, but Jesus Christ, you are a freaking celebrity, dude. These people are freaking groupies at this point. By the time the book sale came to an end, we had sold a ton, with Ferdinand's sheet music ultimately being our best seller. Not surprising there. More noble wives and young women than I had expected had wanted the songs, particularly since they had only ever been performed once during the concert, and were originals that couldn't be heard anywhere else. Some wanted to practice them on their harpsichord while reminiscing about the concert, while others wanted to listen to their personal musicians play them. A few men had even purchased the sheet music, hoping the songs could help them court women, which was pretty funny to see. And also nice. It's also cute, too. I mean, those freaking... Especially the one that they deemed as a love song, quote-unquote, which was the anime-based song. Yeah, definitely. The night stories sold better with women than men, just as I expected. The most popular one was the tale where the knight defeated a fey beast and offered up its fey stone to the princess. His sweet smile as he proposed to her had apparently stolen the heart of all the women who read it. Oh! While the knight may have been modeled on Ferdinand, the Wilma filter had turned him into an entirely different person. Ferdinand never gave sweet, considerate smiles like that. He gave scary, venomous ones. It truly is a shame that you cannot sell the illustrations on their own, Avara said with a melancholy sigh after having bought every single night story. I share your pain, since they sell better than anything else we have available. But Ferdinand was quite clear when he forbade me from printing them. But the world yearns for them. Is there nothing that can be done, she asked, glancing my way. But the matter was out of my hands. I shot my hand up. Unfortunately, Mother, there is nothing I can do. Nothing I can do. I repeated, placing deliberate emphasis on my words. Avara gasped, her eyes beginning to sparkle as she placed a hand on her cheek in sudden realization. Oh my, of course. Indeed. There is simply nothing that you can do. Unfortunately so, and as much as it pains me, my hands are tied. It seemed that my intentions were adequately conveyed. I smiled brightly, and Avara smiled back and turned. Oh, this is going to be good. I can't wait to see this. Oh, Ferdinand, you in for it now. Who's she going to get? Sylvester? Carstead? Ecker? Come on, somebody! Rosemine, it will be right of me to say that Ob Ehrenfest himself wishes for printing to be spread. Yes? Of course, Mother. He wishes to spend the coming decade or two spreading it across the entirety of Ehrenfest as an important industry. Then I shall ask my older brother Gieb Haldenzel if he will be so kind as to help his beloved niece with her work. Will you assist me in discussing matters with him this winter? Absolutely. It was the will of the Archduke that printing be spread through the duchy, and he would have no qualms with more nobles getting involved with the establishment of additional workshops. And were those new workshops to theoretically begin printing illustrations of Ferdinand, well, that didn't have anything to do with me. I love them conspiring with each other. Avarna exchanged conspiratorial grins, her eyes shining as she began plotting out her next moves, starting with finding her own illustrator post-haste. Oh, I can't believe it! I love it! I know you guys too! I want them to make an illustration of Ferdinand for us to download. I would love that to be one of the pictures in the book. That would be amazing! Please! Anyway, I'll see you guys next time.